Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon. Patch 6.4 is just days away, and with it some huge changes to both PvP and Frontline. My name's Salamander, and in today's video we shall be going through all the PvP highlights for patch 6.4. Without further ado, let's get into it. To kick it off, it would appear for that Series 4 of PvP, the big reward this time around is the Allegan Loperit mech mount. As a player who only wears the carbuncle ears, this mount is a must-have for me on the battlefield. For Crystalline conflict, to improve visibility on the Clockwork Castle town, the height and size of certain objects have been adjusted. Season 6 is ending, with Season 7 about to begin. In order to claim any tier rewards, speak with the Quartermaster at the Wolf's Den Pier. Music within Crystalline Conflict has been reverted to a version prior to patch 6.38. And lastly, for custom matches, the following options will now be toggled on by default: arena events and kits. Now for the big, long-awaited changes to Frontline. First up is the modifier changes to damage dealt, damage taken, and limit gauge changes. Starting strong is the Warrior and the Dark Knight. Their damage dealt has gone from the neutral 0% to minus 10%. This overall damage reduction will help reduce their survivability and sustain in large crowds. And good news for you scholars out there, your damage modifier is going from minus 10% back to the original 0%. Rejoice in your newfound power, hopefully bringing more scholars back to Frontline, as their ability to reduce targets' healing was amazing to counter tank spam, with the last two seasons seeing a large increase in tank players. The modifier reducing damage taken to both tanks and melee has gone from minus 60% down to minus 50%. This will give the range jobs a little bit more free reign, as well as helping towards reducing tank spam effectiveness. Good thing they pre-nerfed the melee rolls as well. If they had not, we would be moving away from the tank spam into melee DPS spam. For you physical range, magical range and healers, your damage taken has gone from minus 30% to minus 25%, excluding both Dancer and Red Mage. For both Dancers and Red Mages, your damage reduction has gone from minus 30% up to 35%. A rather good change, seeing as Dancers and Red Mages were some of the easiest to kill. But overall, making range jobs take slightly more damage will help prevent the return of the range spam we saw after 6.1, which made tanking and melee rolls extremely hard to play. Next we have limit gauge changes. For the Dragoon, the Samurai, Dancer, and White Mage, your limit gauge will now take 15 seconds longer to fill. This will affect team battles, as there will be more time given to win the fight before these extremely powerful ultimates can be used to turn the fight. And last up is for the Bard. We have a 15-second decrease, meaning you will now obtain your limit gauge much faster, and will mean your ability to charge party members' limit gauges will be much more impactful. Next up is crowd control effects. This has been a long time coming, and they are starting off strong. For Stun, Heavy, Bind, Silence, Sleep, and Deep Freeze, the active duration has been reduced by 25%. Smaller scale fights and 1v1s will come down to better understanding of one's class's abilities, rather than spamming crowd control to lock a player, while at the same time, players caught out of position will still be mass CC'd by the party for an easy kill. Up next, we have an interesting change to mounts. Originally, if you were attacked while mounted, you would be struck with limp. This limp would heavy you. This was very messy, as it made it very difficult for the player to dismount while being continually attacked. This has now been scrapped, and instead, should you be attacked while mounted, you will be forcibly dismounted, and instead will be afflicted with a status called Hoofing It for 5 seconds. This is not explained, but by the way it sounds, it would be safe to assume that for the next 5 seconds you cannot remount. A very welcome change to many players, I'm sure. Next is a nice change to prevent spawn camping. Should you die and respawn, for a short duration you cannot receive any damage. However, you could still be CC'd into the ground. Now, any and all status and knockback effects, while your immortality period is up, will have no effect. Spawn camping became a big issue in many games when two teams would gang up on one team in their spawn. This will effectively end that, allowing the respawning team to run through their enemies. Next up we have changes to the Frontline maps themselves. First up is Seal Rock. The points to win has been changed from 800 down to 700. This will make objectives more critical, hopefully forcing more players to move in and take fights. Next is Onselhacker. The points to win has decreased from 1600 down to 1400. This will not only speed up matches, but will make objectives outside the center zone far more viable towards the end of games. when stopping other teams from capping becomes important. But the big changes comes to everyone's most hated, the Fields of Glory. First up, the points to win is going from 1600 up to 2000. Elegant Tummelifts have been removed. The spawn rates for Icebound Tummelifts have been adjusted. Destroyed Icebound Tummelifts, which have been destroyed, now respawn after a fixed amount of time. The points earned from both large and small Icebound Tummelifts have been adjusted. The HP of both large and small were also adjusted. And finally, we have terrain alterations and Tummelif placements. I am deeply looking forward to seeing how this new Field of Glory will play. And last up, Borderland Ruins will be temporarily unavailable in order to rework the duty. In light of the Frontline PVP adjustments, it will likely make a return in patch 6.45 or 6.5. For you new players out there who get lost not knowing which spawn you belong to, your Grand Company base will now be highlighted. We have a quality of life change for the Battle High display, making it much more prominent and easy to see. And at long last, we have a big change to the scoreboard. How many games did we all play where third place would fight second place all game, unaware of the scores? Well, now the scoreboard has been added as a HUD element. Big and bold, players will no longer have any excuse for not knowing the team scores. And last up, if your in-game language is set to Japanese, the winning team name will now be displayed in Japanese. Alongside the daily Frontline Roulette, will now also grant PvP Series XP. That is all the PvP changes we are getting on the release of patch 6.4. No balancing this time around, but that's to be expected with such large changes to PvP. I would expect to see minor balance changes in 6.45 or in 6.5. Tanks should now be less oppressive and much easier to shut down, with equal changes to both the melee and the ranged roles. Hopefully this season, we shall see a large variety of classes being played within PvP. I am super excited to play this season of Frontline, and I hope each and every one of you are just as excited. Happy hunting! And I shall see you all in the next one. Goodbye.